I'm Guy Mucklow. I co-founded a business called PCA Predict 16 years ago. We're a dot-com survivor. We kind of managed to last the course, which is very good news. We're a bootstrap business, so I set it up and funded it all myself. Still own with my co-founder and all of our employees actually in the business, 100% of the business. And we operate in an area of the market which is, I guess, kind of runs from two different areas. Data quality, data validation. So if ever you've typed in your postcode and it's brought back your address details when you're going through, let's say, a checkout or registration process online, it's our technology that does roughly 50% of all of those transactions in the UK market. We're the market leaders in our kind of little niche space. And I guess really the point of some of the, I've got two slides here. The first point I want to make really is that it's about, for us really, it was about not reinventing a wheel, but just finding a better way of making it turn. And I suppose if you looked at that statement, you could look at it in another way. I mean, the reinventing the wheel is coming up with a completely original idea, isn't it? You know, so the guy that thought back in all those years ago about how wonderful it would be to have shiny little kind of beads of glass in the middle of the road called cat's eyes. That was completely different to anything that had existed out there before. And he kind of created a market for it and made his kind of fortune on the back of that. What we did was we entered into a market. We improved the way that our market worked. We saw an opportunity to use the internet back in 2001 to improve the way in which data was being delivered to our customers, or to the potential market. So data back in those days, for those of you that are kind of younger than I, was burnt onto CD-ROMs, which obviously is a very expensive process. The kind of data that we use is very dynamic. That was then shipped out to customers who invariably sat on it. So really, there were a lot of sort of inefficiencies in the whole process. We saw, obviously, a way to use the internet to centrally manage that data, provide easy ways of accessing that information. And obviously, once we had updated the data in our systems, it was updated throughout our customer base as well. And I suppose the other benefit that the internet afforded us was the luxury of also providing new payment models. So prior to the arrival of the internet, we couldn't, for example, it was very difficult to provide a sort of a transactional licensing model for the kind of service that we were providing. So I saw a massive opportunity really when we came into the market to enable a much greater user base of potential customers to use this kind of technology. It's not grown, actually, frankly, if I kind of look back on it, as large as I thought the market might eventually get to. But nevertheless, we make a really good living out of it and have grown a very significant business off the back of it. So I would always encourage people to look at, there's no monopoly on ideas out there. I would always encourage you to look at finding a better way for making the wheel turns option as opposed to trying to reinvent it. I always like the expression, and certainly going back into 2000 when we set up our business, all the talk was about first mover advantage. And I kind of couldn't understand why people got terribly hung up on that sort of that phrase. And actually, I think it also holds true that expression that pioneers get arrows in their backs. In business, it is always worth looking out for what other people have done because invariably you can learn from their mistakes and hopefully you won't make the same yourselves, which obviously de-risks it for you. Second slide I've got, products versus process innovation. So I guess really We saw major opportunities really in our market. One in using the internet to provide a much more effective delivery mechanism for the data that we were supplying to our customers. But also there were some massive opportunities really to completely transform some of the processes that actually we could use to enable us actually to provide what has ultimately turned out to be a self-service, largely a self-service model for delivering B2B software. Now, hitherto, prior to 2000, I mean, I doubt very much whether there were any businesses out there that were supplying business-to-business software on a self-service basis. It's hard to do, and it's hard to do sort of using the internet as well, because you've got to have a completely frictionless process, so easy to discover, transparent pricing, easy to test, easy to deploy, and the billing processes have obviously got to be super slick too, because if there's any kind of need for that potential customer to want to pick the phone up to you to ask those questions about pricing or how do you kind of integrate or anything like that, you've lost any margin that you've got on, let's say, a 50 quid sale. We've done that, and I think done it very effectively. I kind of look at one of our processes that actually I know all of our competitors would die for, and that is a billing process that we introduced again back in 2000, which enables us to generate over 20,000 invoices a year for our customers. And I've got a lady that works 2.5 days a week managing all of those invoices. I reckon that single process alone has saved us anywhere between 3 and 5 million quid over the last 16 years. But more than that, actually, it's kind of put a major sort of gap between ourselves and our competitors. I know that the majority of my competitors can't live in the rarefied atmosphere that we live in, yeah? But that's kind of, that's about sort of competitive advantage. It's about using innovation to make a difference, really, in what is actually a fairly kind of standard, generic process. We've just improved it and improved it massively. So product versus process innovation. I've kind of talked about process innovation. Product information is the bit that actually sits above the waterline. In our business, we have a vision which is described as transforming our market through the power of search and service. So the search capability is something that very much kind of applies to the way in which we deliver our technology, and service is something that is very close to our hearts, because without good service, you don't get loyal customers. So, but the transformational piece for me is really, really important, because what that is saying to our business is actually, and to our little niche market, you may think that the market is over here, but in fact, actually, we're going to pick it up and drop it somewhere else. We think actually there's more opportunity in innovating around the product to take this whole market into a different place. We've done that twice. We've done it obviously through this using the internet to provide a much more efficient delivery mechanism for our technology, but we've also done it using search-based technologies, which has enabled particularly overseas markets, the US market, for example, to access data more easily for their particular data set. So in the States, for example, unlike in the UK, where I can type in a postcode, get a list of 20 addresses or thereabouts, one of which is mine, job done. In the States, most people only know the zip codes. From a zip code, you get a list of about 3,000 odd addresses, and it only returns these. Just using the zip code alone only returns the city and the state. In an e-commerce checkout process, delivering half a user experience isn't going to cut the mustard. So, there's been no growth in the market in that particular area for that particular reason. But by using some of these search-based technologies, it has enabled us to deliver a solution into the US market, which has got huge potential, we feel. So talking about innovation and sort of being a copycat, I'd encourage you wholeheartedly to become one of those. Thank you.